Welcome, everybody, to the Synapse Philosophy group. We're in Stevenson's textbook in the senior text on page 238, and we are on principle number 3, the union of intelligence and matter. This is where it all comes together, and this is a pretty good, I like this one, and it's had a lot of discussion over the years. Maybe we can get into a little bit. Anybody have any new news or anything they'd like to clear up from last week or whenever? And I'll take that as a no. So I'll start off and I'll read this, okay? Article 311, principle number 3, the union of intelligence and matter. Life is necessarily the union of intelligence and matter. Without intelligence, matter could not even exist. Without matter, intelligence could not be expressed. We are never aware of motion unless we perceive matter moving. The study of physics shows us that some form of energy gets into matter and makes it move. Without this energy, matter is inert. Energy must have an origin. From its character of precision and accuracy, we deduce that its origin is intelligence, nothing less. These facts from which we derive our conclusions are axioms, can be perceived everywhere. Our recognition of the intelligence of life or of motion in matter depends upon our ability to recognize law. All right, that's principle number 3. And we've got Marina. Okay. How do you feel about that, intelligence and matter? Principle number 3. Hi, Marina, welcome. I had a conversation with some people today. My kids were at a play date and I sat down and talked to mom and dad. And we were talking about something that's so obvious to a chiropractor, is that we are not working even with the flesh of the body. We're not working with the educated portion. We're working with that spiritual intelligence, the innate intelligence. And when we talk about the innate is the animator, but it's also the creator, the recreator, it's the waste disposal unit, it's the emotional system, and that is the intelligence in matter. So I was just having a conversation about this, and for them at the beginning, it seemed a little foreign to them, but then it made so much sense. A lot of chiropractors have trouble with number 3 somehow. I don't understand why.
That kind of goes to what I started to say to you earlier, Hank. And so I'm reading this book called Flip, and it talks about people that have one opinion and one idea about how things work, and suddenly over the course of time or some event happens and they go, wow, how weird is that? And so this guy is a neurologist, and he says, one of the things he says is, at its core, this materialism intentionally ignores what I believe is the fundamental of all existence, the nature of consciousness. And slightly later, he says, something that that's called evolutionary esotericism. And he says, as modern spiritualities that draw on models of modern science, but cannot be fitted into either traditional religious or conventional scientific paradigms. So, and I think that's where we live in chiropractic. We're living at that crux between spirituality and scientism, where we want validation for the spirituality things that what we understand, but they're not always there. Those two things intertwine, but they don't always overlap. And that's one of the troubles we have explaining what we do to people. And I've said this before, but the triune, to me, to realize that in 2012 at the collider in Europe, they found the Higgs boson particle, which they affectionately call the God particle. And it's the God particle because it goes back and forth between a state of matter and being force. And it goes back and forth. And so how does something transition between matter and force if there's not an intelligence involved to allow that to happen? So that it's the Higgs boson particle is a validation of the triune that we hold as our third principle, that matter, force, and intelligence are a triunity, and that are the triunity of existence. I rest my case.
Well, I mean, that's a very good case. Anybody have anything else or like to add to that, or like clarity?
Well, Tesla said way back that once we start to study that non-material intelligence, it will advance our civilization and our science in a quantum leap. I don't have the exact quote, but that was the essence of it. He was ahead of his time, as is chiropractic.
Yeah. And these guys were too, really. I think Pasquale used to say that all the time. Didi was ahead of his time. He was ahead of his time, but now we're catching up to him. And I think it's time for all this. Absolutely. He was talking in quantum before our quantum language now is very easy to us in a way. We've used it. The people have invented the language. Didi was just trying to say things where the language didn't exist yet. Yeah, and what you're talking about, you think about how much energy it took for them to have validation for a theory that they had mathematically. Amazing amounts of energy and amazing amounts of math, of intelligence to try and think of that. So, just truly mind-boggling, really.
Yeah, it is.
Is it worth it? I don't know.
Well, if for no other reason than it validates something that we've been saying that people have a hard time grasping, I'm down with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Did all the scientists run to chiropractors? That would be really cool, because we haven't educated them well enough on that yet. I live on the Space Coast. I have engineers of every sort, from wind, mechanical, hydrodynamics, all of it. And, I explain a little bit of chiropractic to it. They're like, oh my gosh, no one's ever said that to me. In a scientific, put it in their terms, right? So we have a big job to do. Hi, Marina. Good to see you.
Hi.
But I think that Chris Kent talks about, I think he was doing some MRI study with, and Donnie Epstein was involved, and they were doing brain scans and then adjusting people and then doing scans and seeing changes on the scans that they were doing. And he said they did a couple of these scans, and the doctors in the room were jumping on the table to be adjusted like fish jumping out of the water. They were like, they could see the dramatic things that they were seeing, and they were like, holy crap, give me some of that.
Yeah. Marina, did you have something? You unmuted a minute ago.
Yeah, and it's so sad to see chiropractors like that. They limit themselves by being so mechanicist, and I see that a lot in Brazil. We don't have almost anyone looking for the vitalistic version of chiropractic, and they could give so much more, and they don't, and their ego is up high because of that.
Well, it's not much different in the U.S.
No.
It's just that we have these groups. We've been doing this part for a long time. Not necessarily just this group, but in the old days, these guys, they met together and broke it down, Sigafus, Reggie, Arno, Pasquale, they all met together in Pennsylvania. They met in New York. They got together and did this. That's why this is so valuable. And I'm going to say in Brazil yet. How about that? Because we have our first, I just got Portuguese subtitles on the very first episode that we did so far. I've gotten one done. Marina has translated up to, I think, Principle 2, I'm right? And so we're getting there, and we're getting it out to the world. And I just did a post on some of the Spanish and Mexican groups to help do some same thing in Spanish as well, because it's valuable, and it's not for us, it's for the people. And, you know, being vitalistic is not just to say, hey, I'm vitalistic, but it's to help people, I feel, give them hope and give them power to say, you have the power to heal inside you right now. You can be better. I'm going to help you heal yourself. And I just had we just had a little discussion in the office. Things got very symptomy. Everyone's, oh, my arm hurts, my head hurts. And I realized once that vocabulary starts in the office, I've got to go back and look at what my vocabulary is and my actions. So we just said today, okay, you know, if someone's wrist is bothering them, let's get them to understand why. Let's get into more of our adjusting subluxation back on track, just backing on track. Everybody we adjust today, I said, is your knee hurt today? No. Okay, it wasn't your knee. So we just had that discussion about being more vitalistic in the office today. Because we slip, it's slipping and checking. And it comes out, it's easier when people say, oh, my wrist hurts, you're having a heavy day already. All right, I'm going to check this and just get it over with. And I've done it. It takes more strength to say, you are healing. It's not your wrist that's a problem. It's something in your neck, and your body's healing it right this minute. Anybody else? You have any other input, anybody? Steve from Melrose Place down there. I like Steve.
Well, I'm just wondering if the rejection of the vitalism comes from the identification with the body as all there is, and that anything that goes beyond that is frightening or threatening. Why is it so threatening? I'm just wondering. It's a question.
It's a very good question.
I think that the ego wants to believe in physicality and death, and the body is all we are. And it has nothing. So I think it's an ego thing. I think it's a fear thing.
I think it's a fear. One is that it's a double-edged sword here. One side is that they feel like I can make pain go away or symptoms go away easily. They can't explain it when they don't, but I know that lots of times people feel better, and so I want to do that. And I know that happens. It's harder to explain when things don't change or people feel worse after an adjustment on a temporary basis. The other side is fear of what I'm talking about is too weird for people. They're not going to get it. I don't want to take the time. It's fear of it's an acceptance issue of what people are afraid of. Their people are going to think. What are they going to think of me? Well, you know, it doesn't matter what they think of you. But that's the problem. A lot of them are in fear of what are they going to say? Are they going to come back if I talk weird to them about this stuff?
There's also the obvious outcome. You get paid for the diagnosing and the treatment and the outcome assessment of improved, for example, range of motion. You don't get insurance payment for greater expression of love.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
You know,
sign me up for that part.
You should really pay for it. Absolutely.
Exactly.
But yeah, and if you can educate them, that's what they'll come in for after the pain goes away. And that's what they do. That's the people that don't educate for and are afraid, never learn that part. They're always afraid they're never going to come back, but they're ready to have them come back until the pain goes away and come back when they hurt again. But they don't realize that they could help them do something even more, and people would come back forever and bring their kids.
I'm going to pose a question. Is vitalism, is being vitalistic a synonym of spiritual or related to in any way? Because that's where I think people have the hiccup. That, you know, and I'm sure there's plenty of people at the ACA that go to church on Sundays and go to synagogues and everything else, but not bringing the spirituality into what they do every day.
Don't relate it to what they do. Yeah.
So,
no, you know, BJ, I think BJ,
religious person.
Let's Dwayne go. Dwayne, go ahead.
You can be a mechanistic religious person. You can do religion mechanistically. It's a paradigm. It's a worldview that you frame everything in.
Okay.
Vitalism means there's something more there than just the parts or the sum of the parts. That doesn't necessarily mean a religious undertone. It means that we just haven't found it all yet. So I don't think they're necessarily the same or connected, even though they appear to be.
That's a good answer. I like that. Absolutely. Steve, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, when BJ said, make religion your business and make business your religion, I think what he was talking about is vitalism and spirituality.
I tend to disagree, Steve. I think he was talking about the actual practice of chiropractic. He was trying to get the profession built. He's like, if you do business of chiropractic like you did your religion, we'll be okay. That's my take.
That is exactly from D.D. Palmer, 1914, chapter 1, The Moral and Religious Duty of Chiropractor. That's what D.D. was saying 100% is get your act together and take care of the people as if it was your religion. People skewed that, and you know that. But yeah, thanks for that, Dwayne. Excellent. Go ahead.
The other thing I want to go back just a little bit on, if I may. We're talking about people not understanding us, people being afraid of people not understanding us. Reggie would talk for 2 to 4 hours to a crowded room full of lay people, uneducated patients, clients, members. If he could talk like he talked for 2 hours, I don't think it's an understanding thing. I think it's we're lazy, we're scared. We need to zip up our pants and pull up our panties and actually just get it done. And I want to commend you, John Haig. This is one way we do this: is talk about the foundation, the stones of the foundation, and actually get it into the cultures.
Well, thank you very much.
I have a question, Dwayne. Do you feel that spirituality has no place in chiropractic?
Absolutely not. I think principle 1 assumes that anybody that would dare practice chiropractic has spirituality of some sort of another.
Oh, good.
It assumes it and predicates everything upon it. So I'm saying, yes, you must have some sort of spiritual understanding. But I think, in my estimation and in my personal opinion, principle number 1 allows all beliefs to practice chiropractic.
Correct.
I'm going to go back and just read principle 1, okay? The major premise: universal intelligence is in all matter and continually gives to it all its properties and actions. Just as a reference for right now. Yeah, we talked about that. That was really poignant, Dwayne. Thank you very much.
I think that goes back to that whole thing of fear we were talking about, and that is, unfortunately, and again, this group is not in that category, fortunately for us, but I think a lot of chiropractors today are not learning this stuff. They're not. I mean, I started at Sherman, and I graduated from Life, and I'm honoring my mentor Barge tonight by having a libation while we talk. But I think that part of the issue is that so many are just brought up in that materialistic process at the schools today, that they're not getting that full strength of the value of the principles. When I started at Sherman, my first quarter at 7 o'clock in the morning, Tom Gilardi taught philosophy class. It said something to me that the president of the school was there at 7 o'clock in the morning to teach me philosophy.
Yeah.
It said, this is important stuff. And that started me on that path, even though I'd read some stuff beforehand, but that was an important message. And I don't think a lot of kids and a lot of adults are in chiropractic today are getting that part.
And it's an effort to take that part out. And it is, I've talked to, many people about that exact thing about in schools. And we mentioned it the other day, as a matter of fact. It is a conscious effort. The spiritual part it's harder to make concrete. And you have to think in the esoteric. The triune of life, when we think of the, intelligence, force, and matter, not everybody's talking about spiritual intelligence or universal intelligence. It's one of the reasons why I feel we're really doing this is really we have to talk about the spiritual side. It is just as important. If we're going to talk about innate intelligence in the body and a chiropractor adjusts you so your innate can express itself at its fullest, that's a basic understanding. We've got to understand innate better. We've got to break it down and get a conscious grasp for your own spiritual being, wherever you are in your belief system. We need to have a good grasp on it. And I think that's paramount for a chiropractor. Go ahead, Marina.
I think what separates us from physical therapists or medical doctors is the fact that we are vitalists and we are spiritualists. I think you guys also tried adjustments, having chiropractics mechanicists and vitalists, and I think you can notice the difference between them. So I think the mechanicists are not chiropractors.
Yep. And now, go ahead, Miguel.
Excuse me. Ironically, in my neighborhood, the most popular, the hottest physical therapist right now in that North Miami Shores area, they're called integrative physical therapy or something like that, but they actually teach a lot of the same principles that we're teaching. It's pretty amazing that they're like the most popular, the most active. Like, people seem to really love going there, and it's because they talk about many of these same principles. So it's almost like, and we've talked about it before, we're going in one direction in medicine and these other professions are trying to come towards us. So
and we're afraid of it. Yeah. And that's, BJ said it too, that's it. Thank you for that, Miguel. That's it's important. And Dwayne said it, we got to put on our big boy pants and our big girl pants and get out and just start spreading the word and saying what we mean. Say what you mean.
And think how popular Deepak Chopra is, Bruce Lipton, all these guys that are like espousing spirit and matter and vitalism, and why the chiropractors go, that sounds like religion, and want to run from it when we should really expose what we're about. It's so delicious that I don't know why. This is the time, because when I started chiropractic school, Deepak and those guys were not that in the mainstream. Now they are, and they're attractive. I think it's a seller for those chiropractors that want to make money. They should be talking vitalism.
Absolutely.
Deepak's stuff is all about, he talks about universal intelligence. He
Yeah.
talks about innate intelligence, and the last thing he did with Alicia Keys in the last group of teachings that he did, meditations that he gave away, was about the female goddess within, and he was talking about innate intelligence, and it was so apparent as he went through over and over, like he's talking about innate, and even BJ called innate she. So it was very interesting to go through that group of teachings with him. I like a lot of the stuff he writes, actually.
So our time has come. The population is open and ready for it.
It's ready.
100%.
Yeah. We got to get it out there.
Yep. Even one of the Marvel movies, Doctor Strange, it was. The whole transformation was him realizing about his innate. We talk about spiritual intelligence. Your body heals itself. Whoa. Go ahead, Steve. Did you raise your hand?
No, it's just that the outcome assessment folks in chiropractic, they think that they're holding on to the old Newtonian physics of the universe, and they're outdated.
Bruce Lipton, I quoted Bruce Lipton earlier today, and one thing he said, he was an atheist until he read D.D. Palmer's book. And that's why he was so popular in chiropractic, because he was so passionate about it. And he left chiropractors because we all just were fighting with each other. It's our fault. It's no one else's. It's within chiropractic that nobody can get their stuff together. So we've got a small group that's getting bigger, and we're going out and teaching this stuff around the world, okay? Because we want to help people. Period. You going to say something, Al? Did I cut you off?
No, I'm good. It went away.
Okay, Dwayne, your hand's up. Excuse me.
No, it's okay. I think it's really sad that the progressives and all of the other healing arts are coming to chiropractic, and the self-proclaimed progressives in our profession are constantly trying to pick up the crumbs of what these other failed professions have tried to do for decades. I've held that the cutting edge of healthcare is subluxation and adjustment. We are the cutting edge of where everybody else is going. And to deny that as part of just fact, we talk about evidence-informed practice. Let's talk about evidence-informed research. Why don't we take what we know about how the body works and let that drive our research to reinforce the fact that we've already had the cutting edge of healthcare, of science. And if you don't believe that, why are all these other professions throwing away these things to come and do what we've said is the right thing all along?
That's the big question. And I just got up just a second ago. I was just looking for Speransky's book, The Science and Theory of Medicine, or whatever it is. And basically he proves chiropractic in it. And I sold over 100 and something copies, because I got 2 batches of Speransky's book, because it's so important, because he did his research behind the Iron Curtain, not for pharmaceuticals, but to make healthier Russians, right? And his research is beautiful. Prior to that, he was working with Pavlov in their research study. Nerve tracing, virus transmission through nerve. I mean, the nerves being the vital, I call it God's internet, the tree of life, that system of communication. Speransky did such beautiful, real research, and that it should be in every doctor's hand in a synopsis.
There he goes.
Oh, am I back yet? So it should be, Speransky should be in every doctor and every chiropractor's hand and read well. I have an outline of it, and it's called Rational Bacteriology. It's not necessarily an outline, but it's done by chiropractors that I've been meaning to do a book review on it, because it's one of those just more of obscure books. Anyway, thank you for that, Dwayne.
Yeah, I think Dwayne's on a good track there, and I think that there's not how do I phrase this? clearly. I don't think there's a problem with science and validating things that we do, but to demand that things that we do be validated to make them valid is doesn't work. Because, like we said a minute ago, until 2012, the Higgs boson particle didn't exist to validate the triune, but we, in our heart of hearts, we knew it existed. You can't prove that there's a universal intelligence by any tangible means, but we all know it's there, and all religions accept that fact. But science I like to say science is catching up to chiropractic on a daily basis. We just need to stay out in front, which is what I feel like Dwayne was saying. We are out in front, and we got to stay there with our principles and not let the people in our profession that want to corner us into something because you can't be validated by today's science, which is growing daily. And science is one of those things where it's not what we know is so much, but what we don't know is the majority of the universe.
I don't have to know how the body is going to heal your bladder after an adjustment. I just have to know if I move your subluxation, your body's able to do it at its absolute best. I don't need to be proven that. It's obvious. It happens. So, that's we're in a place where we have to just keep going, keep serving, keep showing up, because what it is the squeakiest wheel gets the grease. We've got to be louder than the squeaky wheel. And it's not easy because we're less homogenous, and most people are in practice, and a lot of those people really aren't in practice, and they're the squeakiest wheel getting the most done, from evidence-based to, all these different people, whatever it is. But I think we touched on a lot of great subjects to everybody. And I think we've discussed.
Get Dwayne in.
Oh, go ahead, Dwayne. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would beg to differ. I think the majority of evidence out there, majority of research actually proves what we say. We just haven't had a bunch of Christopher Kents to put it together in enough ways that everybody accepts it.
Yeah,
I think it's based on true physiology only backs up what we've always said.
Yeah. What do people believe? The one that the information they've been told the most often, in a way, right? It's hard to turn back 100 years of programming in the AMA or however long that's been around. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've done a good job on principle number 3. Let's do the triune of life next week, okay? And we'll go from there. We might do 2 next week, all right? Anybody have any last closing bits? Well, I love and appreciate you. I'm really excited to have this group. And just one little plug, July 31st, I'll be in Atlanta with Innate Adjusting. And August 28th is what it is. I'll be in Dallas, Texas for Innate Adjusting. So if anybody wants to join in, join me. And I'll see you guys next week, okay?
Thank you.
Innate bless you. God bless you. I love and appreciate you. Have a great night.